All right, welcome back to the channel. So Keith Thurman disses Errol Spence Jr. by saying, all you're doing is fighting on my leftovers and you need to fight me. And honestly, man, in this one, I kind of lean towards Keith Thurman. I understand Errol Spence Jr.'s point of view, but hey, Keith's got a point. Let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. So in this video, we're going to talk about the welterweight division, one of my favorite divisions in boxing. If you guys watch the channel, you guys know that. Definitely right now, one of the hottest, if not the best, should be the best division in boxing. You've got really good fighters at the top in Errol Spence, who's the WBA and the WBC champion. You have Ugas, who's a very solid fighter, who is the WBA champion, and Terrence Crawford, who is a very, very solid fighter. Some people say the pound-for-pound best fighter in the world, is the WBO champion at 147. And then you've also got very good former champions and prospects like Keith Thurman, Danny Garcia. Well, Danny Garcia is leaving, Sean Porter, and then, of course, the prospects again like Jaron Ennis, Rashidi Ellis, and Virgil Ortiz. So it's just a very, very good division, you know, as long as all the fights are happening. And one of the fights that is a potential fight to take place and really should have taken place some years ago is a fight between Keith Thurman, who was the former WBC champion and the former WBA champion, against Errol Spence Jr., who now has the WBC, the IBF, and is looking to fight Yordenis Ugas in his next fight to get the WBC. So, you know, I think that, you know, for Keith Thurman, you know, this is a fight that I understand why he wants, because it would get him back to a position where he has two belts if he's able to pull it off. And, you know, from his point of view, I can see why he says what he says. You know, look, man, I can understand. Like, Errol Spence Jr. is clearly favored, should be favored to win this fight. I would favor Errol Spence to win the fight, right? But when Sean says, look, you're fighting my leftovers, when Keith Thurman says that, and then you look and say, well, you know, who are the guys that Errol Spence beat? I think it's a reasonable thing. Danny Garcia, Keith Thurman beat Danny Garcia. Sean Porter, Keith Thurman beat Sean Porter, and he beat both those guys in championship fights. He has a loss, obviously, to Manny Pacquiao, but, you know, that's one loss, right? Same thing that other fighters had. And I don't really think that Manny Pacquiao's loss, that loss for Keith Thurman, was really that bad. I thought he had a chance to win the fight before he got dropped. And in a lot of those rounds, it was very competitive rounds, and some rounds I thought he really won. And coming off of a very long layoff, you know, not feeling, if you take him at his word, not really feeling comfortable, 100% comfortable with one of his hands. If that is true, and he gets into a situation where he feels comfortable really letting loose with his left hand, hey man, that fight could turn out different if he can hit Manny Pacquiao with a left hook, right? So I mean, it's just a chance that he could be telling the truth. Now, why is Errol Spence Jr. hesitant to fight him? Because Keith Thurman was a jerk, pretty much. And I remember it happening, was very vocal about it when it was going on. And Keith Thurman, as I said earlier in the video, was, at the beginning, he was just the WBA champion. And then during the midst of all of this, of Errol Spence Jr. wanting to fight him, he became the WBC champion. But Errol Spence Jr. was a top contender and somebody that people knew would be a very stiff challenge for Keith Thurman. Many boxing fans were talking about the fight, and Errol Spence Jr. was very vocal with Keith Thurman about making the fight. But Keith Thurman was very, you know, how can you say, dismissive of the idea of fighting Errol Spence. Was saying things like, you know, yeah, when, you know, you're almost there, son, when it gets a little bigger, that type of thing, right? Where Errol Spence Jr. is thinking, nah, man, I don't believe it has anything to do with how big the fight is and everything to do with the fact that you don't think you can win. And it could be reasonable for Errol Spence to think that because, you know, going into that fight, I think Errol Spence Jr. probably would have been the favorite to win it. I mean, at any point in time in that, ever since that fight was realistic to be made, chances are Errol Spence Jr. was going to win that fight. Keith Thurman, if nothing else, is a very bright guy and knows that that was a tough matchup. So the short of that portion of the video is that, yeah, I understand why Errol Spence Jr. would not want to fight Keith Thurman, and that's what Errol Spence Jr. has been saying. Like, I don't care. No, I'm not going to fight you. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. You were ducking me all that time. Now you don't have anywhere else to go, but now you want to fight me. So forget you. Just like you said, forget me, right? Natural human reaction, man. Natural human reaction. I wish, however, that, that wasn't the case. And this is why I say that. Because Keith Thurman ultimately deserves that fight. Because if Errol Spence beats Ugas and the fight with Terrence Crawford's not made immediately, who else is Errol Spence Jr. going to fight? And who is he going to fight that's more deserving of a shot than Keith Thurman? Nobody that I can think of, because Keith Thurman is a two-time champion. And without a doubt, he deserves another shot at a championship fight. The fact that, he didn't give somebody else a fight, that is of concern to the fighter that didn't get the fight, and that's a situation very similar to the Charlo's brothers' relationship with Demetrius Andrade. Did a video about that a few days ago, where Jermell Charlo is like, nah, Demetrius Andrade messed me over, didn't give me a championship fight that I was supposed to get, but now he wants to fight his brother. So no, my brother. So no, our family's not into that. Well, in that case, man, who loses? The people that lose, Demetrius Andrade loses, right? Unless he goes to get another fight. But, he doesn't lose as much as boxing fans do who don't get to see the fight, right? Same thing with Errol Spence Jr., Keith Thurman. Keith Thurman will get another fight, right? Eventually, he'll fight somebody because he's a former champion. Why shouldn't we be able to see the fight with Errol Spence if that's the best fight on table? Similar to the situation with Terrence Crawford and Sean Porter. People, when I started calling for that fight, people were like, they're friends. And my take on it and the take of other people's other people were, so what? People do business with friends all the time. Friends fight each other in the backyard. Friends fight each other for real, and then turn around some years later, and they're no longer enemies anymore. They become friends again. It's water under the bridge. They look at each other cautiously, but at the same time, they got past that. So I don't believe that that a situation like this shouldn't be remedied, especially when the remedy to it is that includes both guys making a ton of money and boxing fans getting to see a fight that they want to see, right? If Jermell Charlo and you get your payback, right? Because Errol Spence Jr. beats up Keith Thurman. Hey man, I've been now. Not only was I more fair than you and gave you a shot that you didn't give me, I beat you up. Like I said, I would have beat you up to begin with. So now we know what the deal is. We know why you didn't take the fight, right? You get that type of gratification and a stack of money, I say take the fight. But, anyway, that's how I think. And you let me know how you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Peace.